maybe they read a different book than the one that it was I read. Maybe we all don't understand things the same way, and that is why I am upset about Kindred. It's taken me a long time to record this video. I wanted to have like a review of the book and the show up, you know, like that Friday after the show aired, because I watched all 8 episodes in one sitting. And I was unable to do that because I want to know what book they read. So if you would like to hear how I feel about Kindred, maybe get some spoilers, and you know, hear my review of the book and the TV show, here you go. Hi friends, I am Shelby Monet, and welcome back to Shelby and the Book Club. So we're gonna start this video off because I feel like it's gonna be a long one because I'm about to get to hooping and hollering. I know that I am. Oh, and then there was lights. You may hear my dog, but anyway. So I read, where's my book? Here it is. I read Kindred by the lovely, illustrious Octavia E. Butler. Was that in October? Maybe that was in October. And when I tell you I flew through this book, I was immediately pulled in for a lot of different reasons. So in this book, we meet Dana and her husband. They have just moved into their new home in California. It is 1976. Dana has just turned 26. It's her 26th birthday. And she involuntarily time travels to 1815, I believe, the very first time. And there is a river. She sees a little boy drowning. She saves the little boy. His mama come out of nowhere hooping and hollering and screaming. And then there she is looking, staring down the barrel of a gun. And then she is back in her living room. Right? And her husband thinks she's crazy. Some important things to know here. She is a black woman. She is in an interracial relationship with a white man. They are both writers. And the story goes on to talk about her experiences involuntarily time traveling to a plantation, where she comes to find out that some of her ancestors are on this plantation, and she has some very, very, very intense experiences, because one, she's time traveling, two, she's time traveling to a plantation where they think she's crazy, but she has to conform to slavery ways. But then she also not only wants to survive. You okay, mommy? Not only does she want to survive, but she also wants to protect those that are on the plantation that may be related to her, so on and so forth. Each time she time travels, like, she goes there for what are minutes in her present day, but are hours, days, months in the time that she's traveling to. That's the basis of the story without spoiling it for you, right? The things that it really brought out for me were that we are not as far removed from our ancestors as we think, which is something that I've said about the last few historical fictions that I've read, if you've watched those reviews, where we are forced to understand what they have gone through, right? Dana was literally forced to have to deal with slavery and all of the ramifications of it because she could not control her time traveling, right? we also got to see a white man's view of this time. And there were a couple of times where her husband, Kevin, said things that were like, oh, 1819 ain't as bad as it, whatever. But here he is, a white man. There is an instance where he gets stuck there, and she comes back, and the way that he was changed after that was very interesting to me, because his character, I'm not going to say obviously he wasn't racist because he was in a relationship with with a black woman. Those two things don't correspond, right? But he was a smart man. I think his experiences of having to stay in a time that is not meant for him, having to relearn life, and becoming an abolitionist. Can y'all hear my baby snoring? He is knocked out under this desk. But anyway, it changed him. That was a very interesting scene for me too. But I really think the basis of the book is that until we heal certain things, our past is going to haunt us, whether that be slavery, right, and the things that we need to face around that, whether it be ancestral trauma and the things we need to face around that. Those things are always going to haunt you, and she literally was being haunted by these things. And the book sort of ends on a cliffhanger. I do want to reread it. I definitely want to reread it, because I think there's just so much to learn from this book, from the writing style. I think what draws people in is the idea that she is time traveling to the antebellum South, when I think really the conversation of this book is racism. I think the conversation of this book is racism. I think the conversation is, what will we do when faced with our ancestral issues or our ancestral history? Like, the basis of it is racism. And I think that history repeats itself. And I think that we are not that far removed from what we think we know about our ancestors. If you are not into historical fiction, if you are not into things about slavery, this will be a hard read for you, because some of the scenes are very tough. I also think that her time traveling and what she was going through and how nobody really believed her, I think that has a lot to do with mental health and how you know what's happening to you, and you don't need to look for outer validation to know that things are happening to you. You don't need somebody else to confirm to you that you were time traveling, girl. You know that you were time traveling, and if they don't believe you, that's on them, because you time traveling, friend. So that's a summary of the book. It was a 5-star read to me. I did go and try to read some other Octavia Butler books after this, and they did not catch me the same way that this did. And I think that's because I am more of a historical fiction girly than I am a sci-fi girly. I am going to try to read Fledging again. I started it and then I put it down for something else. I will go back to some of her other things and try them again. I did start reading Dawn, and I thought that was pretty good. I put it down for some reason because I wanted to read something else. But I really, really, really enjoyed this because of the historical fiction aspect of it. The time travel was just like the little sprinkles on the cupcake for me. There's something about someone from present day going backwards that is really interesting to me. I would be terrified if I woke up on a plantation, because I know for a fact that they would skin me alive. I know they would. I talk way too crazy to people in order to survive in the South. I laugh in people's face very confidently all the time. And yeah, I just, whatever. Another thing that was interesting to me is the relationship that she built with the young boy that she saved in the beginning. So that's something that I didn't mention, that her traveling back and forth, she figures out that Rufus, the son on the plantation, is the reason that she's being pulled to the plantation, which is how she figures out the connection to her family and all of this other stuff. That relationship was very interesting to me, because I think she was trying to change him. Like, I think Dana thought that she could change this little boy that is in this environment that is normal for him, because this is his life, right? All he knows is slavery. All he knows is the way that his father is. All he knows is, you know, these things, right? And I think it also brings up a conversation of, like, unlearning. There's a lot of unlearning that has to be done in order for us to heal a lot of different things that this country has inflicted on us. And I think the one thing that, people don't like to talk about, or haven't talked about in reference to racism, is that, I'll put it to you this way, and this is how I say it to everybody. When was the last time you questioned something that your granny told you? Not ever. You have never questioned something that your granny has told you, right? Because it's your grandmother, right? Granny knows. Why does Granny put a certain seasoning in black eyed peas when she make them? Don't know. That's how she do it, and I'm gonna just follow behind Granny because it's Granny, right? So that kind of follows, to me at least, how bad habits are passed down. Bad habits being racism, prejudice, so on and so forth. Because if that's just how your family is, and you're not exposed to other, or even if you are exposed to other, how are you supposed to change that? Like, where do you go to begin to change that? Because the people that you would go to talk to about change are the people that have these ideologies. And I think nowadays they are teaching children in schools to ask a lot of questions, where for a lot of generations we were not taught to question authority. We were taught you do what I say because I said so, right? So where do you begin to even think about questioning these thought processes and how it would make somebody else feel and so on and so forth? You don't, because that's not the environment that you grew up in. So Dana was very much convinced that she could manipulate this little boy into not believing in slavery and not being racist because she was her, I guess. And I mean, I guess because she was already in a relationship with a white man, I guess in her mind she convinced the one so she could convince a little one. I talked the grown man into it. I mean, I had to show him my good bits, but I talked the grown one into it. So why couldn't I get a child to not believe in racism, or slavery, or to treat me well, because where I come from, there's some standards. But it's like, it don't really matter where you come from, girl. It don't matter. This is his life, and it's always going to be his life while you time travel, while you don't time travel. Like, that's always going to be his life. And there's a lot that comes with unlearning. Like, there's a lot of things that Rufus would not be able to experience because of the time frame that he lives in. So it's not going to make sense to him to change. It was just a lot. I absolutely love this book. And I was extremely excited for the show, until they made me feel like, did we read this? Is there another Kindred? I don't. Who wrote the book that they was talking about? Because it couldn't be the one. It couldn't be this. It couldn't be this one here. It couldn't have been this book. Because I think Octavia Butler was very intentional about how she wrote characters, why she wrote characters, because everything in a story is cohesive. Everything in a story is, it lines up. Like, it's a certain way so that things could happen and align and follow up and all of that kind of stuff, right? So, again, spoiler alert, just in case I spoil anything for you, whatever. The show immediately starts off not the same, right? And that's not a bad thing. I think If I had not read the book, I would have enjoyed the show a lot better. If I hadn't read the book, I would have enjoyed the show a lot better. If I had not read the book, I would have enjoyed the show a lot better. We meet Dana. One, I would like to know who was in charge of hair and makeup, because the present day in the show is 2016, and I know good and well there was a Coils by Nature, there was a Mielle Organics, there was a what's that other lady? What's that other Shea Moisture? There was, they could have done something better to that baby's hair living in California in the 2016. They could have. Why was the slaves on the plantation hair looking better than hers? And another thing, who was in charge of accents? Because them slaves talk like present day people from the South. Anyway, we meet Dana. Apparently, she had inherited a brownstone in New York, sold the brownstone, moved to California because her parents had passed on when she was young. And in the show, her grandmother was looking after her, and that's who left her the brownstone that she sold and got all this money, right? And she wants to be a TV show writer. So, okay, we kept the writing aspect, and we kept the relationship with her aunt and her uncle. In the show, it's a lot more detailed. I didn't talk about them earlier in the book because they didn't really play a big part in the book to me. Like, we didn't really talk much about her family in the book other than her parents had passed away and her aunt and her uncle took care of her. That was really it. In the show, her aunt and her uncle are disappointed that she made this rash decision, which, okay, cool, but she grown and she wanted to move because she was in New York all by herself. Go ahead, lay back down, Bubby. Lay back down. So in the show, she's not married. She meets Kevin in the restaurant that her aunt and her uncle meet up at, and then she swipes right on him on a dating app, and they have like a one-night stand. Right now, up to this point, she has time traveled once, but she thinks that she's sleepwalking, and it happens again while this man is at her house. Gunner. This is why I don't have a dog, okay? But anyway, she time travels again while this man is at her house. Now, let me tell you a few things about me. Soon as you get to acting crazy, I'm out, okay? I don't really care how long I know you. As soon as you get to acting like a psych facility patient, I'm gonna hit the door. And her having this episode, you want to know something else that irritated me a lot? She did a lot of screaming as she was time traveling. Like, baby, does it hurt? I don't understand what's happening, but she did a lot of hooping and hollering. Then there are the crazy neighbors. Did not like them. It was very much giving Karen. I think a lot of my issue with this show is that they did a lot of trying to modernize something that is already modern. And I think that it didn't have to be present day for us to get the point across, especially when they were going to change so much. Her not being married to Kevin in the show changes a lot of things for me, because I'm not time traveling. Not that he can necessarily control it, because the way that they had it set up was that if you touched her, then you would go with her. So not that he had much control of it, but I'm not staying around somebody, that I'm not married to, that's acting that way. I'm just not. So it changes the dynamic of everything. In the show, her mother is alive. What We didn't even talk about her mama for real in the book. In the show, it's this whole other dynamic. Like, they changed so many things that I just feel like just weren't valuable to the show. Like, it didn't make sense for them to change the things that they changed, especially when they're going to end up being multiple seasons, because it ends on a cliffhanger. So she still time travels. She still goes through all of this stuff. Instead of, like in the book, her having a close relationship to Rufus, which they kind of show, it focuses more on Rufus's father than it did the relationship that she had with Rufus in the book. Again, don't really understand that. Her dating Kevin, instead of being married to him, completely changes the dynamic. Him being like this, again, there's nothing wrong with being a waiter, but I feel like in the book, Kevin being this like sophisticated, older writer, kind of attributed to him being smart, right? And then once they start time traveling, it helped him navigate the situations with her a little bit better, because this is a smart, well-read man. He knows some things. He's read some books. Whereas the Kevin in the show was in a band. He was really into music, which ends up helping them. But like, whereas she needed somebody to like be quick on their feet and on the spot, the Kevin in the show wasn't doing that. Then there was like this aspect, this part of one of the episodes where like this man that was like visiting the plantation like gropes him, and I'm like, what do they have to do with the price of tea in China? Nothing. It don't have nothing to do with the story. It does not have anything to do with the story. So I don't think the show was bad. Hi, Gunner. Are you going to come say hi to the people? I don't think the show was bad. I think if I did not know what the book was about, if I had not read the book myself, I probably would have enjoyed it. I'm probably still going to watch whatever second season they put out if they get that far. Because I just want to see what they end up doing to it. But I just feel like it took away... I feel like the show is almost comical, whereas the book is supposed to be scary. It's supposed to be horror, sci-fi. You're supposed to be afraid. And I was not watching the show. I just was like, okay. Like, it was almost comical. Like, it wasn't. I feel like Octavia Butler is doing cartwheels in her grave. I feel like she is not pleased. Mama is upset. Because they did not do her book justice. They didn't do it justice at all. The material was there. The material was there. And they just chose to ignore it. Like, I understand the idea that, you know, a book to TV or movie adaptation cannot be perfect, right? There are just some things that don't translate from words to TV well, right? But it's just like, why do we have to make it so modern? Why do we have to incorporate the white Karen, right? Why do we have to do that? Why? That's so unnecessary. Why is the focus not on... I'm disappointed. I'm very disappointed as a person that read the book. When I watched it again and separated myself from the book, then I was like, oh, it's not too bad. But I think they played in our face. I sincerely think they played in our face. So if you watched it and you read the book, tell me what you think. If you watched it and you did not read the book, tell me what you think. If you plan to watch it or whatever, let me know in the comments. If no one has told you today, I love you. And I will talk to y'all soon. Bye, friends.